I'm hoping you guys can see that on the screen, and then we will start again. Okay, what we're going to talk about first is DJI Autel, and that's what we are going to talk about first, because that is where I was going to start. So the guy was OBS 2 and many open windows. Yeah, strange, really strange, really strange. Okay, so to start this all again, Autel are suing DJI for a patent dispute around the use of quick release props on various models of aircraft, including the Mavic Pro, the Mavic Pro Platinum, the Mavic 2 Pro, Mavic 2 Zoom, Mavic Air and Spark. Now, the basics of this are Autel hold a patent about the props, quick release, only allowing the prop to go on the right motor in the right position. So you can't put a left prop on a right rotating motor in, etc., etc. And they are suing DJI for the patent dispute. Now, my argument with this is that Autel didn't actually design this patent. Autel acquired this patent in 2017. The original patent, and if we actually click on it, and you can click on this little bit here which shows you the events for the patent and tells you about its history. And the original patent was actually filed in 2013 by a company called Dragonfly Innovations. Now, they're a Canadian-based company who makes UAS and aircraft, and this patent was assigned to them. It was granted in 2014, and then it was assigned to Autel in 2017. Now, that basically means that Autel purchased it, or an agreement has been put in place to give Autel the rights to the patent. Now, the interesting thing about this is actually after DJI released the Mavic Pro, because the Mavic Pro was released in 2016. A long time ago now, actually, thinking about it. So what has happened here? If Autel have actually gone out, bought the patent, and they're now suing DJI for that. Now, if you guys take a look at this patent, it is so loose, it is ridiculous. I don't like patent disputes like this, and we've seen them over the years. We've seen them about iPhone touchscreen, all of this stuff. And this is as much a nonsense patent as I've ever seen one, because the reality is it's going to affect everyone. And it's going to affect anyone who has quick release props that can't go on the wrong way. It means Autel, DJI, Unique have the same, you know, they have a lock mechanism on the H. So pretty much everyone is going to be caught by this. And it's just, as SE has said, it's a lame patent. Now, the basics of this are Autel are suing DJI. Now, you could argue that Autel beat DJI to the punch. Whether, as said, are they suing on their behalf, I don't know. But that is the basics with this one. Now, where this will end up, I don't know. And I'll be honest, this whole thing could end up anywhere right now. Now, much of this, if you look at the paperwork and you look into it, Autel USA are suing DJI. So Autel American arm are suing DJI China. Now, because of all of the noise in the US and everything going on, I wouldn't actually be shocked if there was some form of action here. And I'm not saying it's right and I'm not saying it's correct. However, there is a very real possibility this could actually get upheld, because whilst Autel is a Chinese company, because it's Autel USA, I can see some judges being far more interested in hurting another Chinese company than actually hurting Autel, because they've got the USA in the name, and it's a bit of a political game. And, you know, there is a lot of there's a lot of noise with regards to China in America at the moment, and the feeling with the human malware. And I just wouldn't be shocked if this went bad. You know, Autel is a Chinese company with a USA subsidiary. That is the basics of this. But it is the USA subsidiary that is suing DJI. Now, the patent itself is lame. You know, it's so loose, it's ridiculous. I'm not going to go into it in any great depth on here for you guys. It's just, you know, it's ridiculous, frankly. But it is what it is. There's nothing anyone can do about it. We're going to have to see where this one ends up. But it is interesting that Autel bought this patent after DJI released a drone with a similar lock system on. You could argue that DJI was in breach of this patent regardless, because they've got a lock system, but then again, so was Unique, so was other companies as well, as far as I can understand it, and it really isn't something like stealing the IP, you know, deep in camera design and thing like that. And you could actually argue, and this is a very fair argument, that Autel, DJI could actually sue Autel for cloning the Mavic Pro design, because they did. You know, DJI could have patented a folding drone design, sued Autel for that, but they didn't. So it is a bit of patent trolling. I have read that Autel have been buying up a lot of patents recently, so it's going to be interesting to see where this one ends up. But that is the basics of that one. It is loose, you know, it is ridiculous, but we're going to have to see where it ends up. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk to you guys about was the remote ID, and that was the whole purpose of the podcast tonight, and it's to give you guys a bit of an update on where we are at with this, because there has been a number of changes. As I said in the other bit of the video, which wasn't working properly, DJI put out their remote ID information. All of the manufacturers have. The FAA put out the NPRM. The CAA in the UK are basing on the European stuff. And there's been a lot of info floating around, but we've seen some interesting stuff this week. Now, before I jump in, hey, MacVision 3D. Hiya, mate. Welcome aboard the working bit of the podcast. And again, guys, before I dive in, if there is anything on this you want to ask me as I'm going through, please do put it in the comments. As you can see, they're up on the side there and we can see them. Now, about 2 weeks ago, there was an announcement of the companies involved in remote ID who are going to be dealing with the specification, which was AirMap, Airbus, a number of other companies as well, which I wasn't too pleased about, to be honest. However, that was the situation. Now, a couple of days ago, and that was what we had, the technology partners for that. However, a couple of days ago, there has been this new story on the 14th of May, which the FAA targets a launch of drone ID in 2021. And what is interesting about this is that it appears that they have watered it down quite a lot from the NPRM. And the reality of this is they've probably had to, because there is no way they could introduce what they were planning to introduce in that short amount of time. That is the basics of this. And what's really interesting is that they have chosen to go with a slightly different version of remote ID at the moment in the initial outset. And what this actually does is allow the use of model aviation to continue if they follow this ASTM standard that they're saying. And this isn't the ASTM standard around drone ID itself, but it's the larger standard of the system. And what's interesting about it is it actually hasn't got any of this. If the aircraft isn't equipped, it's not allowed to fly. What they're showing is a network-based remote ID system, which is either the aircraft broadcasts or the ground station broadcasts. And if you actually look at this, we have take model standard aviation showing here with their normal control link and then a reported operation. And what they mean by that is the user will be able to take a tablet, and rather than demonstrate remote ID is live, you will be able to say, I intend to fly in this flight area for the next half an hour or 40 minutes. Now, we all carry mobile phones with us, so the reality is you will still need access to the internet to be able to comply with this, but the fact we all have phones, we all have tablets, means that model aviation will be able to continue in the short term if they do go down this route. Now, they do go into a lot of other detail in this about how often they want the remote ID to actually transmit, and originally it was once a second, and now they're actually saying a lot less than that, once a minute. And part of the reason for that is they're concerned with the effect it's going to have on the mobile phone industry. But what is interesting is this is a very big change from where they intended to go, because if you look, I don't know if you guys have seen, I did a video on this and I did a presentation, and that's what I was opening up here. And if I just find the slides on it, where is it? The one of the slides here, because the US was a 2-level proposed standard and limited remote ID. Standard requires both broadcast ID and network. Limited ID requires a network ID at all times. And again, the problem with this system was it was not retrofittable because it had to go into the flight control system on the aircraft, and under the FAA proposals it was basically going to lock out model aviation altogether. It's as simple as that. There was basically no provision for retrofit. There was no provision for model aviation to continue outside one of those FRI zones that they were intending to push everyone to. However, this new information does change things slightly, and if this comes in, it is going to be interesting. And as Tim has said, yeah, it is assuming you're going to have coverage, but the advantage to this is it would imply that you would have the ability to actually book a flight in advance through LANC and be able to say that you're going to be there in an hour, or you're going to be there now. So whilst it isn't perfect, there is an opportunity to have a non-equipped network participant in the system. And that was the real issue with the NPRM, because the NPRM stated that your aircraft must either have a standard remote ID or the other kind. It must connect to both broadcast and network, it must transmit at all times, and you cannot retrofit it. And there was no option for doing any of retrofit or allowing existing aircraft to continue. And if you had an existing aircraft, you were basically going to one of the predetermined FRI sites, which was the AMA sites and things like that, and you were going to be completely restricted in the way you fly. But the reality is they have given a bit of a get out here. Now, I do not know at this stage if this is a temporary thing as they move towards the standard and limited ID, as 50 says. And again, I went through all of this in the presentation. Or is this actually a move towards a less restrictive remote ID system? Now, I don't have an issue with remote ID in itself, in the sense of ready to fly off the shelf drones. I see no problem with it at all. You know, take a DJI Mavic, an Autel Evo. In those situations, I do not have too many issues, apart from I don't like the fact it's transmitting the location of the operator's takeoff point. Overall, I don't have any fundamental issues with it. What I have issues with is the fact that it was looking like it was basically going to ground all standard model aviation. And that was the problem. Now, it is early days, and all of this is an assumption that what we're seeing here is where we're going to end up. We still haven't had the comments for the NPRM come out yet. We still haven't had that information come through. But this is a massive step forward from where we were at. That's for sure. And the fact that you have two-way control link with a networked remote ID app, you can see, onto a device that goes into the USS. So we still have these USS providers. You've got a networked UAS, which goes directly through, again, through the interface here. And then you've got the model aircraft non-network equipped participant. And this is new. You know, this was not at all a possibility within the original NPRM. So it is interesting to see where this is going to end up. Just looking at the comments, heavy restrictions, I know the rules, just like, yeah, and that is part of the problem. Exactly the same as CB radio. Yeah, you know, Bruce is very much get your pitchforks out and don't listen. Yeah, and that's I think that's interesting. I suspect what's really caught them here is the fact that to implement what they proposed would have taken years. Honestly, I think it would have been absolute mayhem for them to even be able to do it. You know, they wanted all aircraft to be certified. That means no existing aircraft could be certified, so more manufacturers are going to have to send them their aircraft to certify moving forward. They wanted everyone to either be in an FRI or have a standard or limited remote ID. They wanted multiple USS providers up and running ASAP. They were going to police this. They were going to put all of this stuff in place. And I think it was just, yeah, years or centuries, far too much for them to be able to do. Now, whilst I'm not impressed with the names of the companies we have in this committee, you know, we have Airbus, AMAP, Amazon, Intel, that isn't good for us in any shape or form. Let's be completely clear. T-Mobile, Wing, which is owned by Google, you know, there is no drone companies there. You know, you can argue DJI shouldn't have been on there because they're a Chinese company, but they are the #1 player in the drone industry and understand the drone industry as well. There are no major drone players there at all, and it is concerning. It is very concerning. However, this is potentially very good news. It is potentially very, very good news indeed. And what it means is, with your existing smartphone, you will be able to hopefully be able to use your existing aircraft. Now, yes, there is probably still going to be charges. You're going to have to pay a subscription to a USS provider, or you're at least going to be paying for your data connection. But let's be honest, we've all got that already. So there are interesting things around this. Just looking in the comments. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Yeah, Kitty Hawk is an interesting one. You know, for me, and I'll straight this out there out, AMAP should not be allowed to become a USS provider for at least 12 months after these rules come in my opinion. Because the problem is they are making the rules and they're going to have a head start. So in my opinion, AMAP should be banned from even participating as a USS provider for at least 12 months after this, but that won't happen, as we know. Limited range ad in ADS-B. Yeah, I think, look, remote ID in itself isn't a bad thing. DJI drones do it already, it's just closed. It won't be very difficult to upgrade the firmware on most ready-to-fly stuff. The biggest fundamental issue with all of this was the fact that they were going to shut down model aviation. And the big difference between the US and Europe was, in Europe, there is the provision to retrofit. So you have the ability to have a retrofit on the aircraft because it doesn't have a requirement to tie into the flight control system. It must transmit certain bits of information, but it doesn't have a requirement to stop you flying, shut the aircraft down if it isn't working properly, which means it doesn't need to be tied in. And I think it was on one of these slides, self-build. Again, it's been a while since I put this one out there. I don't know if you guys haven't seen this video. It's probably worth checking out. I put this together at the time the AMPRM came out. DJI can pretty much comply with remote ID tomorrow if they want to. The question mark is how far they want to go, or at least the broadcast element of remote ID. Network ID is slightly different, but broadcast, they can comply instantly. But it is going to be interesting to see where this all ends up. And I think it's in some ways, it's a little bit of a win, this. And I haven't seen much noise about it, but it is a little bit of a win for people. Now, as I was saying, whilst the American system seems to have come a bit more towards the middle ground, the UK has gone the other way. And last week before, about 2 and a bit weeks ago, the CAA released CAP 1789, which is their update proposals with regards to how the regulations are going to come in. And one of the big things in this, and one of the big changes in this, and I'm going to get in nice and close for this bit. Oh, Altitude Angel, yes, we'll talk about that as well. One of the big things we need to get into is the remote ID. Now, within the original European specification, there was requirements for aircraft in the open category to be having remote ID in the A1, A2, A3, in C1, C2, or C2, C3 classes. Basically, depending on the class of the aircraft, in the open category, you were required to have remote ID. In the specific category, you weren't, and depending on the kind of aircraft, there were some get-outs as well. However, when you now read this document, it's all been updated on where we intend to go. However, if we scroll down here, right down here, we will find something new, and specifically new around remote ID. First of all, they've had the requirement to have lights, but the big one is remote identification. And what they say is as follows. While the sections of the DR relating to Class C1, C2 and C3 unmanned aircraft already describe the requirements for these types to be fitted. So in those modes, you already had the requirement to have the remote ID on the aircraft. That was part of the regulations. However, that was only within those categories. However, the new European rules are now stating a requirement from the 1st of January 2022 that operators must ensure that each individual aircraft is installed with an up-to-date and active remote identification system. If an aircraft is not fitted, details of requirements to be able to add an add-on and so are there. Now, what they have done with this is very interesting. There are two documents with regards to the European regulations. You've got EU 2019-945 and EU 2019-947. One of the documents is specifically related to hardware, so what the aircraft must do within its classification system, the specifications, the requirements for remote ID, and then the other document relates to laws and pilot requirements to be able to comply. So one was for hardware, one was for the pilot and the legislation, and all the remote ID requirements were part of the equipment. So the equipment in the C1, C2 and C3 categories were required to have remote ID, and that's all spelt out in the document, and it's all highlighted up here as well. If I scroll further up, you can see under here, so C2 can be flown equipped with a low speed mode, and they've got the various other bits added in there. However, they have now moved the requirement of remote ID overall out of the hardware and into the pilot requirements. So just like a pilot is responsible for ensuring that he's registered in each country, he's now responsible for ensuring his aircraft is equipped with remote ID as well. So the real interesting thing about this is that they've moved the requirement within the UK and appears to be the EU from the hardware to the pilot. So the pilot is now going to be responsible for ensuring the aircraft has remote ID, and that means every single aircraft. And whilst the documentation hasn't actually been released for this yet, the CAA have referred to it, and what they're saying in this document is that, let me just scroll down, what they're saying is they've seen the document and they've added the requirement for it. The actual EU document isn't published yet, so we can't actually look at the requirements. But the reality is they've now forced remote ID on every single aircraft in the UK. My understanding, as this shows today, that would be FPV, toys, and all aircraft. Doesn't matter what it is. It will be required to have remote ID. Now, the nice part about the European regulations is that retrofit is possible, and it should be fairly easy to do overall. It shouldn't be too difficult. The hardware is fairly straightforward, but it is interesting what they've done. And basically, remote ID is now held in the same requirement as drone pilot registration, whereas it was part of the hardware. Now, that does lead us nicely on to Altitude Angel, and I'll come on to that now second. We'll just catch up on the comments first. If there's any questions on this, guys, please do let me know. Okay, scrolling down, regulations, of course. Altitude Angel, yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute, SE. In the US, there was a lot of talk about cops needing remote ID, help them find bad guys. Yeah, and 507, the interesting thing about that is bad guys aren't going to use an aircraft with it anyway, so it's not going to help them at all. I'll come on to full screen in a sec. I'm right saying Orange Cube? No. Okay, Vision UAV. The Orange Cube has ADS-B in on board. That is the ability to receive the ADS-B transmission from manned aviation if fitted with it. That is not the same as remote ID. Remote ID is the aircraft transmitting its data. So as it stands, the Cube Orange cannot comply. However, I do know that Profi CNC and Hex and Philip are looking at this. It is something I spoke to Philip about on messaging, and he's really interested or very keen on being able to provide a solution for the community on this. It's going to be additional hardware, but those guys should have something. TYP, as you say, mate, exactly. Bad people won't use remote ID. So like drone dropping rows of prisons, yeah. Yeah, and this is the problem in the US. in Europe, retrofit is very straightforward. You know, the requirements in Europe for the remote ID system was that it transmitted various bits of information, which it can do, and it can get all of that from onboard sensors itself. It doesn't need to take them from the aircraft location, so it has GPS, direction, heading, so it'll need a compass, speed, and things like that. And then there was the need for it to store the takeoff point or pilot's location. Now, in my head, that can work very simply by having a button on the top that you press to store the home point, or the device detects when the aircraft takes off through IMU sensors and then stores the home point as part of that. And remember, that is for broadcast ID, but it can also do it over network as well. So it's fairly straightforward in Europe. The problem in the ANPRM proposals was that it had to detect if the remote ID system wasn't working properly and prevent takeoff. It had to prevent the aircraft taking off if it had been tampered with, if there was a problem, if it wasn't connected to a USS provider, and it had all of these requirements to actually integrate with the aircraft. Further to that, it would have to be certified, because the FAA put a requirement in for all hardware, including aircraft, to be certified. So even if you then had your aircraft retrofitted with a compliant system, you'd have to send it to the FAA and pay thousands of dollars to have a man sit there and certify it. So it wasn't realistic. That was the issue with the FAA proposals. However, if they move towards what we've shown earlier, it is going to be quite interesting. SE, right, okay, with regards to ADS-B in, there's no requirement to remove ADS-B in. What pretty much all of the governments have done is banned ADS-B out being used as part of a remote ID solution. So they do not want ADS-B at all involved with UAS. And that's what they've said. Now, that isn't ADS-B in, because at the end of the day, ADS-B in is just a receiver picking up existing aircraft. This is, they do not want unmanned aerial vehicles transmitting ADS-B data at all, and that's where the situation is with that. But with regards to aircraft and the ping unit in the Cube Orange, there's no issues at all. That will continue as it was. They just don't want aircraft transmitting on ADS-B because it's only a 20-year-old technology. So I hope that answers that one. Again, guys, if you do have any comments, please do let me know. So that is the interesting thing. I'll just put it back up for you guys with the CAA proposals. We've gone from a position of remote ID only being required in the class C1, C2 and C3 to it now being a requirement for the pilot to ensure that any aircraft he flies is fitted with a compliant remote ID system. So we've gone from it being a hardware requirement to a legislation requirement on the pilot. And that is the interesting difference with it. And it's not good. You know, it really isn't good. But we're going to have to see where it ends up. I'm waiting for the documents to be released by the EU. I want to read what they've said exactly, because I still cannot find the bit they say. Because what they say, it is interesting as well. Well, no, because TYP XXI, no. Basically, within Europe, a remote ID device will need to broadcast either on a network or on wireless certain bits of data. Those certain bits of data are, and I've got them in my presentation. Off the top of my head, they are, let me just find it. Broadcast ID. The basics in the EU, let me just have a look here. Okay, altitude, speed, GPS location of both aircraft and ground station, heading, and various bits of information like that. All of this can be done from the device itself. So potentially you could still fly a fixed wing with just a stabilizer on board. No GPS, no nothing. And all this device needs to be is a small device with an IMU sensor, a GPS and compass, and a little radio transmitter. And that's all it needs to be. And it can be really small, and it can really be this small. Let me just show you. It can be that small. Because what we've got here, and I have showed this before, what I've got here is two devices. Okay, guys, let me just put this full screen. We have a Maytech small GPS unit. Now this one doesn't have a compass on, so it would need a compass, but it could be a bit bigger. So that is a Maytech small GPS unit, and here is a small Wi-Fi UART adapter for connecting to drones. Now basically, a remote ID solution can simply be these two devices, because this is a Wi-Fi transmitter, so this can comply and transmit data on the open standard that they require, and this can provide the GPS data. So all this needs is a small MCU between them that takes the information from the GPS, feeds it into a small microcontroller, takes an IMU data, uploads that and transmits that data out. So it really can be that small. That is all it would need to be. And potentially you would only need one of these, because remember, if you've got multiple aircraft and you're not flying them all at once, you can transfer it between them. So this isn't anything that's particularly difficult. Hardware wise, this is really easy. I was even considering designing one of these myself. That's how fairly straightforward this is. Don't get me wrong, there is some technical limitations to it, but the overall basics are GPS, IMU, Wi-Fi transmitter. That's all it needs to be able to do. And that is the real basics of what the system needs to be. And it literally doesn't really need to be any bigger than that. And that will literally do it all. Okay, so I hope that helps. Right, what I'm going to do is run and grab that drink for 2 minutes, because I've run out of saliva in my mouth is the best thing to do. So I'm going to put the mic there for 10 seconds, guys. If you've got any questions, please do put them in the comments. Sorry, that probably made a horrible noise. I do apologize. And I will be 2 seconds. And I'm coming back. Okay, I'm just going to clip this back on, please. Sorry about the noise. So I'm trying to find the right position. There we go. I am shilling that seat again. Now, did I leave it in view? There's a link to it in the description of this video if you want to order it. Okay, let's catch up on the comments. Curious to see all that working with that. Yeah, and the interesting thing about this is, obviously, like, we've got thousands of phones that are transmitting data on the ground all the time, so it's just going to get all mixed up in that anyway. Yes, Dave, I'm shilling the seat again. Yeah, there will be, that would be, SE, that would have been my preferred option. I would prefer not to have a network element to it. Broadcast is fine. Personally, broadcast simply needs to transmit an ID, and then there should be an app for law enforcement that they put that ID in, and then the information is provided to them only. It should really be that simple. Or have the option of network as well. TYP, no, well, that could do both. So this could do the broadcast element, so it would just transmit on the open Wi-Fi protocol and everyone could pick it up as per the standard, or you could have it transmit on open Wi-Fi and then you pick it up on your phone and transmit it across the network that way as well. It could do both. Okay, so that is the basics with the US system at the moment and the UK. We're in those two situations. Now, as SE said earlier, I want to just find Altitude Angel. Now, I don't really know Richard. I've actually had the privilege of speaking to Richard from Altitude Angel a few times on the SUAS News podcast, and he comes across as a really good guy. He really does. However, I'm not getting sucked into this one, and I'm going to bring this up. Okay. This week, Altitude Angel have released Scout, an open source hardware and software platform for remote ID and UTM. Now, what they've basically released is a set of drawings for a device that will connect to a remote ID network, and it will connect to their remote ID network. So what they're showing is they're showing you a piece of hardware which allows you to connect to their UTM, basically. And whilst it is lovely to see a nice open source piece of hardware, it's hard not to get away from the fact of what they're doing here is the same as many satellite providers. Sky did for years. We're going to give you a satellite box to connect to our service. We're going to give you this so you can connect to our service. And that is basically what they're doing here. Now, that isn't to say that there will not be other service providers in the UK. However, Altitude Angel are looking to become one of the main back-end providers for this system as well, and it is in their interest for systems like this to go out there. Now, I do really like Richard, so I don't like hating on him too much. However, this isn't the answer to everything. You know, the answer to remote ID, if we're going to have it, is a piece of hardware which costs $20 to $30 maximum, or £20 to £30 maximum, and allows you to retrofit to your aircraft. I don't have any issues with that. What my concern with this is that it is a access to their system. And, you know, the more that gets out there and thing. Now, it is good, though, to see them doing something. You know, they've shared the design and they're going to be sharing the firmware for it as well. So other companies can manufacture this and put it out there. But it's a bit like... it's a bit like a company giving away. At the end of the day, nothing comes for free, okay? And that is the reality of these things. And there's a lot at play here, and Altitude Angel have been doing some fantastic work, but they're also looking to model themselves as part of this UTM and be providing either the back end for it or providing some part of the infrastructure for it and allow them to do that. And that's really what this device is. It certainly isn't an open source broadcast ID compatible device at this stage. That's not what I've understood it to be. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. But it is out there. They've put the design. I haven't actually downloaded it yet. I did see it come up. If we open the Scout, you know, if you look at what they say about it, you know, it's open source, UTM ready, things like that. Yeah, whether they want, someone will have to pay them, whether it's the user or whether it is the government, someone would be paying them SE. Hiya Phil, I hope you are well. That's behind conductor. Yeah, look, I still don't have an issue with it on ready to fly aircraft. I think if it's done properly, it can be a benefit. There is a project going on, and I'm going to talk about that a bit more in another video. I've been sent some information on it about another remote ID standard based on ASTM that doesn't require all of this data to be being transmitted to everyone. And that's probably where the big issue is here. You know, if you look at the US and the UK and Europe models, is they want all remote ID data to be publicly available. So in the UK and Europe, for instance, it's going to transmit the aircraft's serial number, the aircraft's pilot ID that you've put in, its location, the takeoff point or pilot location. It's going to be transmitting all of this out there for everyone. And it really doesn't need to do that. For me, what it should do is you should have to register and get an ID, just like our flyer ID that we get in the UK now, and you put that in. And then government and law enforcement see that being transmitted, and then they have a backbone app on their phone which goes to a government system that gives them the data they need, just like a license plate on your car. Your car has a license plate, but it doesn't transmit to the world your home address where you're going and where you've been. And that is the problem with this. Remote ID does. And that is the big issue. And whilst we can put information publicly available for a license plate on a car and it'll tell us the make and model, it won't tell you who the driver is. It won't tell you where he lives. And that is the interesting thing about remote ID. What they're asking to do is give everyone every bit of data. And that is the problem with it. Now, what is a far more reasonable solution is that transmit a unique identification, and then that identification is used by relevant parties to get the information they need and not provide it for everyone. And that's my thoughts on that one. But this is the Scout. So what have they got on the hardware for this? So they've got a GitHub. Vodadrone, yes. So they've got a GitHub, they've got firmware, so we've got Scout, so let's have a look. Hardware, schematics. Now again, you see really it's just a microcontroller. And is that USB connection? What have they got on there? Modem module. The microcontroller is the brains of the Scout, and then the modem module is the mouth and ears. So it just has an output to a modem module, basically. Schematic. Actually, no, it's got a PCB. Have they got SVGs? Have we got any top solder mask? Can we see that? Okay, I'm just trying to see how they're showing it. Okay, so we can see the overall layers. Battery connections. Okay, so here we go. This is what I was looking for. Okay, so it was done in easy EDA, which is nice. So what we've got is DC to DC converter, charge circuit. Okay, so we've got the microcontroller. And where's the radio module? Yeah. Yeah. The reality is it's just a microcontroller. It's and a radio. That's all it is. And that's all I really mean this needs to be. You know, if you look at remote ID, all the hardware needs to be is a GPS unit, a microcontroller, and a radio. That's all it is. It can be open source hardware. Yeah, so as you say, we've got an Arduino, we've got we've got charge circuit, microcontroller circuit, power, okay, we've got a FETs, we've got the I2C lines. Yeah, you know, it's nothing particularly crazy. What board are they saying for the radio system then? So what did they say for the radio? Let's just go back quickly. Scout hardware. Microcontroller. So brains of Scout microcontroller. Yeah, it's a 328, so it's a standard Arduino. So it's got to be, well, the same one as the Uno and Micro or Nano. It really is fairly simple. There's okay, so what module that's selected, however, it occupies GPS class function. Yeah, exactly. And there are going to be issues out there Very good point, Vision UAV. You know, there are going to be issues in those places. Ah, here we go. So what modem are they suggesting? So they're using that module there. Now, what is nice about this is close to being a very... It won't be far from this having to be able to be converted into a solution like that there as well. So it won't take a lot. I didn't really look too closely at the hardware side of this when I saw it. Look, it's very nice to see, but I think what you've got to take into account is the overall goal here and what the overall plan with this is for them. Because at the end of the day with this, right, you could have just taken an Arduino and put it on and just put another board on the top. A solution to remote ID might be a hat for an Arduino with Wi-Fi. Just, well, you got the Wi-Fi hats for them already, but a dedicated hat with pre-programmed code. So, you know, really there are plenty of solutions out there for this. That was about it on the remote ID stuff. If there's any questions on that, guys, please do put them in the description in the video. In the comments, not in the video, in the comments. If there is any other questions, some other stuff this week. Let me just take a sip of this. Just got over the hour, or about 40 minutes after the messing around. It's been quite a busy week for me this week on the channel. I've been trying to get some stuff finished. I've got I'm trying to get 4 videos done on the trot about the Pixhawk setup, or the ArduPilot setup, I should say. I've got the first video edited. I'm finishing the second and third at the same time. I'm trying to get them out. I'm trying to get them finished. I want to do them as a block of 4. And the reason for that is I've got the basic overview, GPS, compass and RC, and I want them to go out as a block of 4 videos. They're not videos that you make for getting views on your channel and you know, taking the channel forward. They're videos that help the community, and that's why I wanted to put these ones together. The amount of time I've put into them is quite substantial, actually. And then, you know, it's interesting. There are some videos I do which I do to put the information out there for people, to try and help people set something up. The Rover has been like that one, and a couple of other ones as well. And I want to get these ArduPilot ones done. I think it's 7 videos in total, the plan is, and I want to get them done. I could have been a lot further along than I am, if I'm honest. I need to get off my bum and get them finished, but I want to get them out there. I've sort of been waiting for the next firmware build to land, because some of the stuff I'm talking about is in the daily builds, and it's very relevant moving forward as well with regards to the compass calibration and the new setup of multiple compasses using the device IDs and stuff like that. But I want to get those videos out. If you guys haven't seen, I put the video out of the scope today. Please do check that one out if you haven't seen it. I would really appreciate having some feedback on that one. I was extremely lucky to be able to work with Telonic in the UK, and they very kindly supporting me and helping me get some new test equipment. If you haven't watched the video, please do check it out and support the channel if you can. Hiya Colgy, how you doing? Well, cooking some dinner. Hope you are well, my friend. Hope you are well. So I've got these ArduPilot videos I want to get finished. I've got then I've sat down tonight and caught up on where I need to go and where I need to be, on what videos I need to be doing and get on top of. Sometimes you need to put some structure into a channel in the sense of know what videos you want to do, and I've laid all of mine out tonight on the stuff I want to get done. Let me just open up and just see what I've actually written down. I created a spreadsheet for it. So we've got the remote ID one. Now I'll probably take this one down as a live stream and actually edit it into a bit of a video. That's probably the best thing to do because it's been a bit of a mess. I've got some more videos to do with the oscilloscope. that I want to do some RC stuff with it. Some cool comments. TPA, you mentioned about showing the S-bus signal, the inverted S-bus, so we could take a look at that on the scope as well. And there's some just cool stuff. Like, no one needs an oscilloscope to be able to test stuff, but God, it makes life easier if you do have one when you're trying to diagnose stuff, especially. And it's really good to be able to show some of this stuff. I'd love to get a spectrum analyzer on the bench. I would really love to get a spectrum analyzer on the bench and really get down to show you guys the difference between some of these radio systems, OcuSync, Lightbridge. And I did a video on these ages ago, and I had to beg, borrow and steal some of the images that I got in that one. But I'd love to actually get a spectrum analyzer on the bench and show some of this stuff to you guys and show you the difference between some of them that use OFDM, some of them are using LTE like HearLink, and try and explain these systems a bit differently. But we're going to start with the scope and we're going to build up to other stuff. So I am going to try and do some more videos on the electronic side of things as well. As you guys can probably see in the background, the bench is a total mess, but I've been messing around with some stuff. I've been doing a lot of practicing again with SMD rework, because I used to do a bit of it and I haven't done a lot of it recently, and I've had to get back into it. And I will talk about that a bit more in a video as well. I want to get into looking at some of the stuff on the scope as well for the RC, so showing you what an FPV camera looks like. You know, you just see a basic waveform, but it's handy to be able to look at this stuff sometimes. So we're going to talk about that. We've then got, I've got a video I want to do on my PC about the BIOS, because I promised I would do the video to accompany the motherboard video on the BIOS, which I haven't done. I'm going to be talking a little bit about equipment as well. Some of the stuff I use on the channel, I want to talk a bit more about the equipment that I do use at times, the cameras, the microphones, the lights. Just, I'd like to try and share some of the experience that I have built up on getting this to work. Not that tonight would tell you I have any experience at all based on that thing over there. So I want to do some stuff like that. So we've got the scope, we've got the signals videos. I got my Prusa video to actually finish editing and put out. It's been sitting there for far too long, it needs to go out. And I've got some more I want to do on HearLink, and I do appreciate the comments on that. Let me see here what the comments say. I do appreciate that, Magvision. Yeah, you know, it is videos like the HearLink ones. These ones are not videos that are going to get 1,000 views. These are videos that serve a very limited audience, but they do help people, and I like doing those videos. Now, I've been lucky to be able to feed in on the HearLink beta. I've been trying to give those guys as much information as I possibly can, Philip and the gang, and I've been really lucky to have been able to spend a bit of time in a couple of chat rooms talking to them behind the scenes to help get this firmware out there for people. I can understand there's been some frustration, but the next update should make a lot of people happy. Trust me, I wouldn't say it if I didn't think it would. I've been also helping them with the documentation. I wrote up the wiki the other day for the new firmware. So I've been trying to do like little bits like that. It's just stuff that I enjoy doing. It's not done to benefit the channel. It's not done to benefit me. It's just done to try and put information out there into the community as well. And that's why I do it for the HearLink stuff. I'm probably going to try and do a bit more on Ardu as well. I've done some tickling around the wiki on Ardu, but I will take a bit of a dive into some areas of that as well, and maybe try and help out on that one a little bit too. Yeah, videos do help, and that's the idea with the Ardu videos. Is I wanted to put like a bit of a series together that takes you through setting an aircraft up from scratch, and it isn't perfect, and I'll be honest, I'm not 100% happy in how they've come out. I'm not going to sit there and show you how to stick the flight controller on the board. I'm not going to sit here and say, right, take this and stick this there, take that ESC and plug that in there. I'm doing those videos from the angle of, the frame is set up, this is what I did. So this is how you do the motor order. This is how you mount your flight controller if it's not internally isolated. But I'm not going to sit there and actually build the drone. What I'm more interested in is going through the setting up of each individual piece of hardware once it's connected. So the GPS units, whether it be CAN or serial/I2C. the new compass settings that we've got with CAN based, which are going to be much better. The RC options, whether you're using S-Bus, whether you're now using Mavlink controls on things like HearLink as well. So it's taking people through them as well. And, you know, sometimes I have to sit down and play with this stuff to be able to make sure I get the information right. And I don't always get it right either myself. And I'm sure there's probably one or two mistakes in the videos that are coming up. And if anybody spots them, please do let me know. But the idea really is just to be able to share as much information on these systems, because everyone benefits if we all share a little bit of info. And it's that simple. What we got in the comments? Let's have a look. Andrew Dibbins. Yeah, that'll be useful. Ultrapilot telemetry, FR Sky Smart Port. Yeah, I need to have a look at that stuff. Multiple layers deep, it's not messy. Yeah, it's not terrible. I got my new bench power supply over there. I bought that second hand last week. I paid £100 for it. It's okay. It's not perfect, and it's got a bit of a strange quirk. It's made by EA. I can't remember who they are. They're quite expensive power supplies. I'll talk about it in a video. But it is weird, something weird. It's voltage increments are 0.5 volt below the rounded off figure. So, for instance, up to 1 volt, it goes in 0.1 increments, and above 1 volt, it goes in 1 volt increments. And for some reason, no matter where you set it, it goes to 0.95 increments and stays at 0.9, well, and then goes to 0.95 and then jumps in ones. So for instance, if you go 0.1 all the way up to 1 volt, it's fine. Then when you turn it to 2 volt, it actually goes to 1.95 volt. And then 2.95 volt and 3.95 and 4.95. And I can't figure out how to stop it. And I've read the manual and I'm still not sure. So I need to email the manufacturer and I say to them, what is going on with this? Because it's really a little bit frustrating, and whilst it's only 0.5 of a volt, I would rather have it on the full number and not the lower number. So we've got that power supply, and I've just been doing a lot of stuff over there. And again, we will be talking about the scope as well, and it is a massive shout out for Telonic in the UK for supporting us with this one. I am massively grateful. We're going to be doing a number of videos. We're going to be talking about them as well. So please do check that video out, because it does help me along if you do check that one out as well. Okay, DJI. DJI's complicit in the FAA fiasco. DJI are very much a passenger in it now, Steve. You know, look, DJI created Remote ID a while back with Earscope, but it wasn't open. It wasn't transmitting for everyone to see. DJI have been championing an open Remote ID for quite some time, but I also think they've seen where this is going as well. And the reality is all governments around the world are pushing this way. One manufacturer alone has not caused this. This is very much a general push from a security and privacy point of view. And in fact, so much so, if you read the UK documentation, and this is what really got my goat up about the UK doc. I'll just bring it up to that section. You can see it yourself. They make it abundantly clear this isn't about safety. What they say is the remote identification requirements are security and privacy driven rather than safety reasons. And that is the same pretty much across the globe. Yes, DJI introduced Aeroscope some time ago. Yes, they are the biggest manufacturer. They are responsible for more drone incidents than anyone else. But then again, they sell so much more than anyone else. At the end of the day, what's happened is cameras in the sky have scared legislators. And that's the reality of things. Just to let you know, I love the test example of this video and how different this is. Yeah, it is. It is interesting. When you look at a servo, it's really interesting. When I first did it, when I was obviously whenever you do something, you want to make sure I understood what it would do, but I hadn't dived into. I knew what how a servo worked. I knew it was roughly 50 hertz. I knew the duty cycle moved, but I never quite realised it was only like 3-point-something% to like 12 or 13%, and when you see it moving back and forth, it's quite a cool thing to see. It really is. Nice Starship Fantasy. Yeah, look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you DJI are perfect. I'm not going to sit here and say they haven't done bad stuff. I'm not going to sit here and say they haven't lobbied for remote ID. None of us really know. What I know is this. The day a Phantom landed on the US lawn on the White House, the world changed from a drone point of view. I know people in the background, I know people involved at DJI, and I know people involved in various parts of the industry. And the day that happened, it woke a lot of people up, and that triggered a series of events. You can argue that it's DJI's fault it happened in the first place. Selling drones too cheap, selling loads of them. DJI are just a hardware manufacturer. At the end of the day, if it wasn't DJI, it would be someone else. Country of origin doesn't come into this. Someone flew and landed a drone on the White House lawn. Yes, it was that old crazy story back then. But the day that happened, that changed the legislation around the world, and every government woke up. Further to that, the Gatwick situation blew everything up as well. DJI introduced Aeroscope, which allowed them to see data from the aircraft, but it is private. You know, it isn't out there for everyone to see. Yes, you can hack it. It's very easy to see Aeroscope. That's not the point. General people can't. So therefore, it's not a major issue. The interesting thing was DJI demonstrated their direct phone to drone remote ID, but that was based off the government's own requirements. DJI didn't invent that. What they showed was what the legislation will mean. And that was the problem with that video, because it wasn't done very well, if I'm honest. DJI didn't say in that video, we're showing you what government legislation would be like. What they actually said in the video is, we're demonstrating our open drone to phone remote ID solution, and they had a huge amount of kickback. And they didn't really put the message across well on that one. But what they were showing in that situation was the fact that that was how the legislation would allow them to transmit the data openly, so everybody with a phone would be able to receive it. They're not perfect, but they have been a reasonable voice. Look, I think, yeah, Secret Services employee, yes it was, and I remember that, but from a press point of view it sort of went nuts, didn't it? And it was just crazy. What I have found is interesting, I wasn't going to touch on this in this video actually, but I will mention it. The anti-Chinese rhetoric out there right now is getting very, very noticeable. It first started obviously at the beginnings of the human malware situation. You have a government in the US, rightly or wrongly, and I'm not judging, I'm just saying we have a government in the US who is very happy to throw that card around and push out an anti-Chinese rhetoric. And you have people around the world in pain. You have people who are losing their jobs. You have people who are locked down and are suffering losses of their family. And there has been fingers pointed at the direction this whole human malware situation come from. And my personal belief is it didn't just originate over there. I personally believe it was far more widespread than we were led to believe before that as well. I think it's mutated. I could be wrong, I don't know. But what is clear is if you look at the Mavic Air 2 release video, the amount of anti-Chinese comments on there, we've seen Brendan release a number of statements in the last week or two, and they're all being hit with quite heavy anti-Chinese comments against DJI, talking about spying. They released their on DJI Australia, they released their piece about that helicopter incident. I should bring that up actually. DJI News, they released their talk piece about the helicopter incident, and they've had a lot of kickback about that. And it is clear that we are living in a bit of the world where they're under a huge amount of pressure right now, and anything could go anyway with this. And it is interesting to see the amount of just anti-Chinese behavior, especially towards DJI, and it really isn't well-founded. If you're going to have an anti-Chinese If you're going to say, right, I don't want Chinese equipment, then you need to give up close to every piece of equipment we have. You know, the West has been happy to plow money into China for 20 years and let them make all our equipment. Every laptop is pretty much made in China. Every iPhone, every phone, most of this stuff. And we've all sat here and said, yeah, we love cheap electronics, brilliant. And now we're saying, ooh, nasty China. And we can't have double standards on this stuff. There is no good and bad spying. There is no American spying is good and Chinese spying is bad. I take the opinion that all of the governments are spying on you, and if you're concerned about your data, look after it. And it is, yeah, but it is interesting how much anti-Chinese comments I've seen on a lot of videos recently, and it's more than I anticipated seeing, and it is really interesting. It's very, very interesting indeed, and they are going through a bit of a tough time, and really just circling round to the whole thing, you're seeing it with this whole remote ID as well, and you're seeing this, DJI are causing this and DJI causing that. I'm not saying they're perfect, but look, they are a company. They are no better or worse than Apple. You know, if you follow some of the YouTube channels that I follow, such as the board repair channels, Louis, on the Mac repairs, the iPad rehab, and all of those guys, you know, there is some pretty nasty behavior from US and British based companies. You know, you can have a MacBook like my one here. Let me just grab it. This one has the sealed SSD. So there's no removable SSD on it. It's also useless at live streaming, but it has the sealed SSD. If I was to pour a glass of water on that completely accidentally and take it into Apple and they said, sorry, it can't be fixed, they would categorically refuse to tell you you can get your data back. In fact, they will tell you your data is gone. They won't say you can try taking it to an independent repair center, or they won't say even, sorry, this isn't something we can help you with. What they will tell you is your data is lost, and they will give you a fact which simply isn't true. So if we're going to talk about companies not behaving well, then we have to also accept that many of our own big companies behave very, very badly as well. And whilst you might say, oh yeah, but they're not stealing data, okay, but what they are doing is telling people that they are losing stuff when they're not. And literally, you know, Louis Rossmann Repair Group, check it out, fantastic. But, you know, there are companies going, you know, yeah, he's gone. Sorry, it cannot be fixed. And then you give your laptop to them, or your tablet, or your iPhone, and they'll get your data back. They might not fix the phone, but they'll get your data back. And it's wrong. And these things shouldn't be happening. So if we're going to call out Chinese, Taiwanese companies, let's also take a look at our own ones as well, because there is some frankly shocking behavior happening in the West as well as the East. So I do think DJI are having a pretty hard time of it right now, in all honesty. Just checking in the comments, guys. Dirty Bird, yeah, again, many people won't, you know. Yeah, you know, look, I'm not going to say they're perfect, but I'm certainly not going to say they're the devil. Now, it was DJI Australia. I have also cancelled my Mavic Mini order. I will say that as well, guys. No, I haven't. I've cancelled my Mavic A2 order. I've also cancelled the Mavic Mini order because I tagged one of them on as well. But I have cancelled my order for the Mavic A2. I ordered on day one, very early in the morning, a Mavic A2. And it had still not shipped Friday. Yet I could go on Argos in the UK and get one the next day. So I got annoyed and I've cancelled my order with DJI. At this moment in time, I don't think I'm going to order one. Okay, now I'll be interested. You guys tell me if you want me to do some content on a Mavic Air 2, because I don't really know where to go with it, if I'm honest. I don't know whether to place an order or pick one up, make some content, or not bother. The reason I'm talking like this, hello Gary, how are you doing? The issue, I ordered 2 originally, then I cancelled 2 and ordered 1. That's what happened. But I ordered the first ones at 2 a.m. in the morning and then ordered the other ones at 6 a.m. But they still didn't deliver. Now, all of the big channels, I saw Thing, he's got one on here as well, Cole G. All of the big channels have obviously all done their content and everything. I'm locked down, so I can't fly. I'm going to be locked down for a couple of weeks. You don't need to see me flying it around a park. You don't need me to show you how the app works. There are far more people out there who've already done that. You're not going to see me showing you how the object avoidance works because I'm a commercial operator and I have to fly within the law. So for me, the content that I can provide is very limited. And in the good old days when we had the new aircraft, you didn't have all of the massive channels showing this stuff, like the iPhoto, all of those major channels, as well as there's a lot of guys on here now tonight, far bigger channels than I have. And I've just got to the stage where I'm thinking it really isn't worth me ordering one and putting the time into it when I'm probably going to get 150 to 300 views, because I started to see this happen on some of my videos with the very pushed products. So the Mavic Air was one of them, the original Mavic Air. Mavic 2 did okay. I did some good videos on the Mavic 2, but there was some good content to do there. So at the moment, I've made a decision not to order. I've stayed out of it, but if you guys do think there is something you'd like to see me do with it, let me know. But I think there are probably far more people out there better at showing it, filming and doing great footage. I don't show a lot of my drone footage on the channel for a number of reasons. Number one, I intend to try and keep my licensing, because I'm always flying within the law. But yeah, and I just think there are so many people doing it better. So many people doing interesting content, and I'm just trying to put the time into the other stuff, like the FPV stuff. I've put a lot of time into that and things like that as well. But let me know. Yeah, Gary, into rovers is always good. Problem with the latest DJI is you can't unlock them. Yeah, that's part of the issue as well. TYP, yeah, if it had come, I'd have done some content, but what annoyed me really was the fact of Friday it still hadn't shipped, and everyone else in the UK had their orders. So, the stuff. E2 will be late in you. The stuff sounds more. TPI E2 will be late, and your other stuff sounds more promising. Of course, DJI influencer support. Sorry, TYP. E2 will be late and your other stuff sounds more promising. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Promising that, you know, DJI are certainly pushing the other channels. I've been very lucky to have access to some stuff early over the years from DJI. They've been very good to me. Very, very good to me over the years. No strings attached, no requirements. They've never asked me to do anything that I wouldn't do. They've never asked me to show them a video up front. They have literally at times sent me a box. Now and again, I've seen a box turn up and I didn't even know it was coming. You know, that was the Sendence was like that. I literally had a box arrive and I was like, what's this? Opened it up and it was the Sendence. And that was pre-release, and my one doesn't have, it's not finished. My one, it's partly built because it was a very, very early production unit. Now, I was very lucky to be able to do that. These days, you don't see that anymore. They've been really good to me over the years, but that part of them is gone now. They used to have people all over the world, little people that used to help them beta test, which I used to do as well, and we used to feed in on products. They've just got so big now. All of that supporting the little creator or the little tester is pretty much fallen away. I still have some really good friends there, and I'm very lucky to have access to certain things now and again. But overall, with regards to mainstream products, the reality is, you know, it's the big YouTube channels, the big channels that are promoting is where they're going to get it. Okay, I just want to find this Now, they put it on DJI Australia, okay, is where they put this thing. I'm trying to find it. And it's defaulting back to UK. It might be on Gary's website. Diddy Bird, there's a lot of... news... Where are they? Where's this statement that Brendan put out? I'm going to have to go on Twitter and we'll have to find it on Twitter. SUAS News, 6 minutes ago. Are these better systems? Agras, interesting aircraft. I got to see one. It's a bit spidery. If you ever see one of these aircraft, it's very, very, very spidery. That's the easiest term to use. Let me just... Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah, it's just interesting the amount of, you know, anti-Chinese rhetoric out there at the moment. Yeah, I'll be honest, right? I've never had that happen. Then again, I've never really dealt with marketing. That's probably the fair assumption to make. The people I've dealt with have always been within the testing and support area, and that's how I always was able to get. You know, I've never really dealt with marketing at all. So everything I've had has always been, here, have a look at this. You can't talk about it yet, but we'll tell you when you can. And that's about the only stipulation I've ever had, is you're not allowed to talk about it until this day. And that's about it. But I don't know with marketing. I've never really dealt with their marketing guys. He didn't know lots of his friends were going from DJI. Yeah, DJI have lost a lot of people in the US especially, and some bloody good people as well. It's a real shame. It's a real shame. It is what it is at the end of the day. It's interesting times. Look, it's very, very interesting times. Let's just try and find this thing of Brendan's. And look, I would not be shocked if this Autel thing does go south, because there is a hunger within the US to do something about it. Not the patent dispute, but DJI. But we're going to have to see. We're going to have to see. Brendan's a good guy. I like Brendan. I've never spoke to him. I've always found Brendan okay. I've never had an issue with him at all personally. I think overall I found him, here it is, content.dji, found it. I've never really spoke to him, but he always, I have no issues with any people. I just, you know, I read something, I either accept it or I don't. The collision, yeah, and look, they put this data piece out, which basically said, this proves we don't have your data. It's even I'll admit that it's a bit of a silly thing to put out. It doesn't prove anything. It proves you didn't have that bit of data, you know. And to be fair, there was a lot of kickback on various Facebook groups with some questions that were legitimate. And, you know, and they're hard to get away from, and they're hard to not have answers to. He does come across as a nice chap. He really does, Brendan. You know, I've not had the privilege. I do feel for him at the moment. I really do. But, you know, there was a lot of kickback on this, and questions like, okay, you don't have the data, but what happens to the data that's on the aircraft SD card when we send it in for repair? What happens to the data that gets transmitted when we synchronize flight logs? And the problem is with a statement like this, if you're going to go out and say, we don't have your data, you have to be willing to answer every single question around that, and be willing to say, this is how open we're going to be. Look, I don't believe for 1 minute DJI is stealing your flight data, your video data. that's not going to happen, okay? But people also have to understand is data is valuable in very different ways, and different bits of data is valuable in different ways. And if you share that data with DJI, I would simply expect that it might be used for whatever purpose they decide it's handy for, whether that be product development, whether that be improving the aircraft in the future, or improving DJI as a company. They're going to use the data. Now, there's a lot more that could be done around this, but at the end of the day, if you don't sync, they haven't got it. But there are still genuine questions, such as what happens to the data that you cannot erase on the SD card on the aircraft when you send it in for repair. And there are unknowns on that stuff, and answers weren't given. So poor Brendan got a bit of a kick in, to say the least, on a number of groups. He really, really did. Gary, you spoke to him. Yeah, like 4-banner cars use lug nuts. Way to win friends, Autel. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to have to see. You know, the only thing I will say is it is the right time for something to happen in the US, and this patent might just be something that the US government wants to make a point about, but we're going to have to see. We're going to have to see. I think this year for them will go down as one of their toughest. I really do, and much of that isn't their fault. It's simply rhetoric, around the current situation in the world and the bad feeling. And look, people are in pain. People are in pain. And people are unhappy, and when you've got governments pointing fingers, then people point fingers with the government pointing fingers as well. So that's the situation. That's about it, guys. Now, I want to apologise for the mess at the start of the live stream, because what I've proved is that my MacBook Pro is not capable of live streaming, and that is what I have proved today. So a 2016 MacBook Pro i7 fully maxed out spec isn't capable of live streaming a little 1080p feed on YouTube. How stupid is that? I'll go live again next week. The plan is to go live again next week and try and do these every week. What is interesting with this as well is YouTube is actually better with them now. When I first did the first few live streams, it didn't like it at all, and it wasn't ranking them and it wasn't showing them, but it is much better overall now, and YouTube takes the videos and shows them to people afterwards a lot more. And what I was finding in the early ones is it wasn't sharing the data at all. Before I do go, guys, we got, you know, we're 10 to midnight in the UK. If there is any questions before I finish up, please do put them in the comments. No, I'm using OBS. I didn't try it through StreamYard, guys. Should have. Yeah, that was through OBS. That was through OBS. So we're going to have to see. The problem with OBS on Mac is someone was saying in the comments that it wasn't working properly for someone else today as well. But you also have to have an NVDA plugin as well to be able to share it, and it's not worth it. I really want an ASTM Mini. Which one is it? Let me find it. Blackmagic. I really, really, really want one of these. ATEM Mini, not AS. There's no S in it. I'd love the Pro, but that's not going to happen. But I would really like one of these. So would like one of these for live streaming, to be able to. I could use my PC then over there, because I can put the ATM Mini over there. And then control it on the desk and have multiple inputs, and actually use the MacBook as a display input into it, rather than try and use the OBS and the software and things like that. I don't need the Pro because I got the HD60X as a streamer. They aren't expensive in the sense of they're not crazy money. I just need to liquidate some more equipment. I'll be completely open and honest here. I have a chunk of DJI credit I need to burn through. that has been built up over 4 or 5 years through the beta testing I used to do, as well as a couple of product refunds and things like that. And that was one of the reasons I need to exchange that to be able to buy some new equipment. I want to get some more test equipment for the bench. I also want one of these. They, I think, Gary, I think they're 350 quid. They're also like rocking horse crap. You just cannot get them anywhere. You just cannot get them. Everywhere everyone had them out of stock. 333 quid, estimated delivery 4 to 6 weeks. People are selling them on eBay for 800 quid. That's how much they're going for. Thank you, Vision UAV, mate. You're more than welcome, mate. You are more than welcome. Thank you for coming on the live stream. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, the interesting thing with Blackmagic is a lot of their products have been hard to get hold of for some time. And I don't know why, whether it is to do with the human malware situation, because obviously it's going to be made in China, and whether it pushes back from there. But it is a fantastic bit of kit. It really is. Everyone, Gerald and Dunn uses it. A lot of guys use this and they do like it. And the nice thing is you can switch between cameras on it. It's got transitions. It's got way more than I'd ever need. And the difference between the ATM Mini and the ATM Mini Pro is the Pro directly live streams from the device. You don't need a separate video encoder like I've got the HD60S for going off my camera. You don't need that. It streams directly. Whereas this is a switcher, not a switcher and streamer. But desktop streaming, how much is the Pro? 545 for the ATM Mini Pro. 2 to 4, that's interesting, isn't it? Less lead time on the ATM Mini Pro, 654 quid. A lot of coin, an awful lot of money, an awful lot of money indeed. However, I wouldn't mind one. That's the reality. I'd also like, the nice thing with it is you'll be able to do multiple cameras. So you can do multiple cameras. You don't need multiple encoders. I could then have like the desktop switching in, the laptop switching in, the Sony switching in, other cameras. And it can also then be used to have like an overhead camera and things like that. If I could, it's one of those things. I've sold the Ronin S last week. I need to liquidate a few more things. If I can afford to liquidate a few more, then I'd probably have a look at it. But you know, this is tens of... yes. Right there. Shall I have a look? Right there. Let's have a look how much I earned off my last live stream, shall we, Gary? Let's, you know, because you make so much money off live stream, money YouTube. You really do. It's incredible how much money I make off a live stream. Let's have a look. The 12K show. The 12K show, and I want to thank everyone who did actually make us to 12K on that one. Let's have a look. Let's have a laugh. Since published, it is in 45 pence. That's how much money I have made. Welcome to YouTube, folks. I've actually, and this is the last thing I'll say before I go off because it's nearly midnight, I've also uploaded a load of my videos onto this new platform that's available as well. And it isn't new. I can't remember what it's called. Don't give up the paper round. Yeah, Phil, that's the truth. That is the truth for sure. That is the truth for sure. But consider buying a gaming chair like this. You really do support me when you buy a gaming chair like that. See, the shilling on the gaming chair. How much be a Mars bar over there? A Mars bar be more than that, Gary. Yes, a Mars bar be more than that. It's interesting, right? Live videos. No, that was not the 12K show. We hit it afterwards. I'm denying all of that. But no. Oh, actually, let's have a look at one of the other ones that did a bit better. Let's have a look what that one did. Let's have a laugh. YouTube analytics are just... Good YouTube analytics. Let's have a look how much we made on this one. £1.37 on the one from a month ago. So it's big money, guys. Big money. Massive money. So things. So what was I going to do? I was going to look at one thing. Oh yeah, I've uploaded some of my videos, or the channel. Let me just get my phone. I need the phone. And I'll just show you guys this, because I don't know if you know about this. It's a new platform, and I've uploaded it because I seen Library. So I've uploaded a couple of the videos onto Library. Dirty Bird, my man, thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for that. That is very kind of you. That is very kind of you indeed. That is for the super chat. That's massively appreciated. Thank you for that, mate. If you've got any questions, please put it in there. Let me just bring up Library. Now, I only come across this the other day, and I come across this from EEV blog and library.tv. And it's a new platform that, it's not new, it's been around a bit of time, but it is a platform that is growing, and it is based on Bitcoin. And they actually pay you for views on Bitcoin, but you can actually also charge people to download your videos as well. So they can actually download it to have a copy. And it isn't about those people stealing them and uploading them to other channels. It's about people being able to use that content offline and things like that. So I've just signed it up. 342, but arrives 11th of June, 3 delivery. Ah, that's interesting. That's worth a look. Thank you, mate. And yeah, I don't know how this is going to go. I've literally done this week. So let me just click on this. It's now got 250 of our videos up there. So it's uploaded all of the videos. And what it does is, you can link it to your YouTube account, and then it will drag all your videos over for you and set it up. It literally set the whole thing up. So if you haven't seen library.tv, it's probably worth checking out. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. It's a different platform. I don't fully understand it yet. I've not fully understood how it all works out, but it is, yeah, I'll put a link up, library.tv. It's something that EV blog, and he actually showed some of his money that he makes on it, and it's a backup just in case it dies or strikes back. Yeah, and that's the thing, it gives you a backup just in case. And again, it's just another place that your content is located. So I started it, I think it was Friday. I told it to transfer all my videos over. And by today, it's all done and dusted. It's all done. Everything's up on there. I don't really know if there's analytics. I've not even got... I haven't spoke to the old duffer in New Zealand about it, because I've been waiting for him to come up with his solution, and he still hasn't. And when he does come up with his solution, I will also be uploading it to his as well. I did check it out, and it has some legit people backing it, in the sense of you have got EEV blog, you've got a number of other big channels as well on there. So it was enough for me to go, okay, I'm fairly happy putting it in. And if we go to the top channels, if we go on the top, you've got some interesting content creators on there. Does YouTube love it? I don't know. I'm not sure what YouTube think about it. Now, if we just have a look. So what you've got is, and there's a lot of videos. Now, I'm trying to find the list of channels. Yeah, he needs to get on with it. He needs to get on with it. He really does. So yeah, it's an alternative. I've set it up. Argue on Tuesday. Yeah, there's a whole thing about setting it up, and then you can transfer your account in. Trying to find. There's a list of channels. That's videos. So trending channel. Let's just change the channels. There we go. So I go to top channels. Here we go. We've got some of the top channels. And I do know that EV blog is quite high up was quite high up in the list, I believe, when I was looking. Where is he? He's got to be here somewhere. Channel top, oh, not this week, all time. Here we go. Okay, where is it? Again, I don't really, here he is, look. So EV blog is on there. So you got, you know, we're going to follow EV. So yeah, it's worth a look. If you do have a YouTube channel, and it's going to give us a backup as well, and it gets your content into more places too, which is always a good thing, isn't it? I hope not. You know, I'm heavily relying on EV blog knowing what he's talking about. He's done a video on it. He's done several videos on it. It is legit. I did do some research. I think if you're going to worry, look, could your content get stolen off YouTube? Yes, there are apps that allow people to download videos anyway. So you can't, in some ways, you can't worry too much about that. But let's talk about it Tuesday, Gar, and I'll do some more research. I've taken the dive. You know, I've followed in. I've gone in behind the EV. He's been on there for a long time, actually, and he was talking about some of his... pound for pound, it actually makes more money than YouTube as well. Okay, look, this isn't about the money, but at the end of the day, it does do more. Does it show how many about comments? You know, it's not got quite the same amount of stuff as YouTube. The information. He's been on there a year. So. McDuffer, yeah, we can ask McDuffer. Okay, guys, that is it. Thank you for watching. We've just hit midnight here in the UK, so it's time for me to go to bed. Thank you for watching. Please do accept my apologies. How do they pay? Yeah, they do pay in Bitcoin. They do pay in Bitcoin. That's correct, library Bitcoin. So it's not quite the same as YouTube, but you're going to let it thing up as well. I do apologise for the messing around at the start of the live stream. I won't be doing that again. That is for sure. Let's get it on full screen. Please do check out the oscilloscope video if you haven't had a chance to watch it. I could really do with support on that one. Please do like and subscribe if you're not already. Thank you for the super chat, Dirty Bird. I really do appreciate it. It is a massive, every little penny is a massive help, as it is to any channel. And, you know, we all live in a material world, and when you're trying to make content, unfortunately, things cost money. That's it for this video. Take it easy. Look after yourself. And you, Gary, I hope you're fine, and I will see you on Tuesday. Thank you, everyone. Ta-da. Button 1, button 2.